Please welcome the veteran dynamic duo, Kylie Kiser and Heidi Neuhauser. Today, they will be presenting their session, 50 Tips in 50 Minutes for Dynamics 365 CRM. Please stick around after Kylie and Heidi's session for a live Q&A.
Hey everyone, welcome to 50 Tips in 50 Minutes. So thank you to DynamicsCon for having us. Thank you to all of you for voting us in. Heidi and I are super excited to try and do these 50 tips in 50 minutes, which is actually 50 tips in 40 minutes because we are going to have live Q&A at the end. So quick introductions. I'm Kylie Kiser. I work at RSM Canada in their consulting delivery practice. And Heidi, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Heidi Neuhauser, and I'm a partner at Reenhanced. And again, like Kylie said, thank you to everybody who voted for us and to everyone who's attending our awesome DynamicsCon session. So we are going to try our best to get through all of these tips in 40 minutes. But don't forget, if we can't quite finish everything on the slide, add something to the comments. We are monitoring that. We'll talk to you if you have questions about something. If there's more you wanted to learn about on one of these tips, use this opportunity to just put it in the chat and we will answer you live or within the chat as we're going on. You ready, Kylie?
I'm ready. I'm starting the slides, which will start our automatic timer so we stay on time.
Okay.
So let's go.
I've never successfully gotten through this slide. Tip number 1, follow solution management best practices. There's a lot of stuff here. So first, we're going to use solution files to package up all of your changes. Second, you are going to use at least 2 environments. You get them for free. You might as well use them. Sandbox and production. You might have more, but minimally those 2. Third, set up your own custom prefix or publisher so you can track your changes. Fourth, when you're adding components to your solution file, don't add all components or metadata unless you need them. Fifth, come up with a naming convention for your workflows, your flows, your business rules. It just makes it easier to be on the same page with everybody else in your organization and quickly and easily find things. And finally, have your users test and verify changes.
And we didn't even talk about managed solutions, but you should probably be looking at them. Also, we want to tell you to use a configuration table, right? Create a table in your environment that you use to house things like the URL, the name of the environment, maybe other data points that change between your environment. Set that up and put it all in Dataverse. Display it in an administration area for your admins, right? Put it somewhere that you can change data instead of needing to change hard-coded values, right? This is something really easy to set up and it can save you so much time on your deployment so that we can use all those best practices that we just listed on the slide before.
Tip number 3, form a group of end users. I talk about this tip a lot, so sorry if you're hearing me say this again, but I think it's super important that you gather end users in a group. And we're going to call them whatever makes sense in your organizational culture. I put a few up here. Super CRMers, your Power Apps ninjas, your champions. What's really important here is that you need to bring people together from all types of skill levels, not just your tech ringers. You want some of those people that have a hard time adapting to change, to getting new technology, because you're going to learn about what some of those barriers might be to them really embracing the tech stack. And maybe you'll even figure out what you need to implement in order to get them on your side and then become advocates. I'm going to do 4 because I love this slide. Also, take those end users and you're going to use them in your requirements phase. These end users aren't just for your go live and for your UAT and for all of your testing. So I love this image. It makes me laugh so much because on the left-hand side, you have your clients like, wow, I love this. This captures all of my requirements. But no one talked to the user, who in this case is the baby, because all the baby's doing is seeing butts. They don't see it in the same lens as the clients do. So this is good when you think about users and management, and you don't want to just implement what managers think. I love you, managers. It's nothing against you. But you aren't in the day-to-day. You're not in the trenches. So you make sure you talk to those users.
And find the user's pain, right? One thing we always struggle with is user adoption. So let's try and find out what users are struggling with in maybe their former process that we can fix in the new process, or things they're struggling with in Dynamics, in their model-driven app right now. Find that pain and fix it. Maybe something is too many clicks. Maybe we need to add another link, add a navigation item. Maybe something they're going through a process that is very repeatable, but just takes a long time. Maybe we can put it in Power Automate, right? So we're going to talk about some business rules we can use to do some of that, and we'll also talk
we're
about Power
there
Automate.
now. So tip number 6, minimize required fields on a form. I use this all the time. So this screenshot is a business rule using a conditional, which is how you start all your business rules. And our actions here are set business required. Now, another little bonus tip on business rules, you're going to make sure that you have both your positive path across the top. When your condition is true, do this. Make sure you also have your negative path on the bottom. So for this one, we're saying set this field required when this is true, but when it's not true, don't make it required. Because when you change something on the form, you change the value, you want to make sure that that business rule triggers as well. So this is an awesome one for user adoption.
Yeah, so similar, we want to minimize and make sure that they're not filling out too many fields, right? We want to make sure if it doesn't need to be required, it's not required. But then on the other side, if it needs to be required and we need it for our data quality, then we can use business rules to set it as required, right? And if it's not required, we can also hide it. Oh, wait, that's the next slide. I'm getting ahead of myself. So as you can see in this example, we're checking if this is a commercial property, and if it is, then we're setting certain fields to required. And like Heidi said, we always need that not true path, right? So in the other cases, it's not required.
Now we're going to talk about set visibility, another one that I use all the time. I really think I've used this in every dynamic system I've ever done. So this one, your action is set visibility. So like Kylie was saying, we're going to, make this easier for the user, and we're only going to show the fields this time that I need to see. So going with the same sort of example, if my lead is residential, I'm going to hide all those fields that only have to do with B2B leads. Likewise, we're going to do that negative path. So if my lead is not residential, I want to show all of those because that's really important information to gather. So you can see in the animated image here on the right, we're changing the value and it's showing and hiding different fields. And I don't have to do anything other than change the value.
We also can use business rules to show the error messages. This is great because I can use it for data validation, right? Something that they enter in a value that it shouldn't be. In this case, right, we're saying if there's a high probability, then I need to make sure I enter in an estimated revenue. And if I don't, then it's not going to allow me to save. So this is, again, great for our data quality to make sure I'm getting the data I need, and I can use it to provide users with more information so they know what we need from them, right? And we just make sure they're not saving bad data in the system.
Ooh, have a breather.
Wait,
business rules, add recommendation. So the one that Kylie just talked about and this one, I think, are two really underutilized business rules, but they're really powerful.
Yes.
So for this one, you would configure it by using that recommendation, which you can see on the screenshot here on the right. And this example is if my account's country is USA, I want to add a recommendation to set the shipping method as UPS. I mean, this could be whatever field value you want. What's nice is on the left-hand side here, you can see what it looks like. It has that apply button, so your users can click that apply button and it will take that action for them. Isn't that cool? I love business rules.
I think the recommendations are so cool, but nobody ever uses them, which is very sad.
I know.
Also, we want to pick the right column or field type. So it's important when you're building out your system or even any enhancements that you're doing that you're thinking about what data type you need for any new columns or fields you create, right? Because this has impacts not just to how it appears on the form, but also to your reporting later on. So a really good question to ask your users and whoever you're getting your requirements from is, how do I want to use this field in reporting? What reporting do I want from this? How do I want this to appear? What kind of advanced finds or views or charts do I need to build off of this data? So lots of different types, right? We have our normal text. Never mind. We'll hear about them later.
And when you're building, remember you have comments if you have questions. So use those tooltips on those columns. A tooltip is just simply you're going to type in that description field. You can see here on the right-hand side. Whatever text you put in description becomes a tooltip, meaning as a user, if I hover over the label of that field, I will see the description. So it's a wonderful thing you can do to help your users proactively, let them know what that is, especially if it's a field that's not out of the box. I mean, this is a simple one showing us website. But when you create a custom column, a custom field, you can let that user know what it is. If there's a calculated field, you can maybe define the calculations so they understand. And I guess I'll stop.
Great segue into calculated fields. So there are a few smart fields available in Dataverse. One of those is calculated fields, which means I'm basically setting a formula like the one you see here on this screen for what this field will be set to. Calculated fields are very cool because they're going to be read-only, and they're going to be calculated whenever one of the data points in that field changes, when that record is saved. So if I have my calculated field being displayed on the same form as the other fields that are involved in that calculation, it won't update as soon as I change them, but when I save that record and refresh, then I'll see the update.
Another cool field is a roll-up field. A roll-up field is a way to aggregate values calculated over related records. So this is like using sum, min, max, and count in Excel. So some really good examples that we implement a lot are like, what is a roll-up of all open opportunities on an account? And then I can use that column as a view on my account table. So my users and management and anyone else in the system can see at a quick glance like what that value is. So again, you can use that for sum, count, min, max, or average. Those are your options on a roll-up field. You can use a calculated field in your roll-up, which is really cool. And these run asynchronously on the background on scheduled system jobs. So you have to hit refresh.
And it's important, it's important with these fields you're creating, lookups, we have to keep in mind that the relationships matter. So when I'm linking two tables together, I can configure what type of relationship that is, and I can configure that relationship behavior. So we also encourage you to check out Classic because there is even more functionality in Classic than there is in the Maker portal, at least right now, for modifying that relationship behavior. And that cascading is really important when we talk about security in a little bit, or when we talk about plenty of other topics. Your cascading behavior matters. So you want to make sure you understand what that is.
You can go, Kylie.
And related to your relationships, we want to talk about many-to-many relationships. You have the ability you saw on the last slide to create many-to-many relationships if you want to, and that'll show up as a subgrid on your form. But there's no information tracked about that relationship, right? So generally, we'll encourage you to create what they call intersection table or an intermediary table that kind of sits in the middle, right? So that table would house the date that relationship was created, maybe the status or additional information, and it gives you a lot more flexibility in what you're setting up.
So more fun with relationships. This is my favorite thing in relationships. It's field mapping. So this is only available in one-to-N relationships and N-to-1. It allows you to map a value from one table to another. So out of the box ones that you get for free are like the lead to opportunity qualification process. So you know how when you qualify a lead, certain fields will move over to an opportunity. Well, you probably have other details like custom fields that you want to map over. And you do that by switching to Classic and going to mappings, which you can see on the screenshot on the bottom right here. Then you have this pop-up, which you see on the top, and you're just mapping like fields. Now, there's some rules around field mapping, which you can ask me about, and I'll answer in the comments.
Which we can ask in the chat or the live thing. As you can see, we can talk about the SIF. I can't waste time on rambling. Don't use out-of-the-box security rules. You can, but there's probably more permissions in there than you want, and you definitely don't want to make changes to out-of-the-box security rules, because if updates are released to those roles, those are going to overwrite your changes, right? So what we encourage you to do is take those out-of-the-box roles, copy the role, and then make updates. And so our next few slides, we're going to talk about some of the updates that we encourage you to make. I think somewhere in this presentation, we talk about security and things that we want you to make sure that you do.
So field security profiles are really cool. I believe they're still done in Classic. Kylie, tell me if I'm wrong.
I think so.
But these allow you to lock down specific column access for specific users. So going a step further than what you can do with like business rules, I only want person X, Y, and Z to be able to edit this, or I only want security role Y or this specific team to be able to edit this field, but I want everyone else to view it. So you can do all of this with field security profiles, which are awesome. So this would be at the level read, which means you can see the data. You could create, so anyone in that field profile that has create access would be able to add data to the field when they're creating a man.
You should talk about this.
Okay, Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. I really love this. I think it's awesome. I have a note on the bottom here. Keep an eye on Viva for Sales. I feel like it might cannibalize it sometime soon. Just because all the release notes for Dynamics app for Outlook have gone away and been moved to Viva for Sales. But anyway, right now, Power Apps and Outlook equals love. So with the Dynamics app for Outlook, you can track emails with one click. You can add new data with 1 or 2 clicks. So that could be lead, account, case, contact, anything, any of your custom tables. You can create them from an email you receive. You can also track Outlook meetings as Dynamics 365 or Power Apps appointments.
And what's really cool about the app for Outlook is I can now customize the forms. So when I track an email to an appointment, to an account, and so you see, then it comes up the details on the right-hand side of that account. And it might have, the account name and the organization, something like that. But maybe I don't use a hierarchical account structure. Maybe I don't use the fields that are there by default. So I can change those to what makes sense for my organization. And this is also cool to use if you start adding other tables to your app for Outlook. Maybe you track your emails to a custom table. Then I can customize the fields that show up for that custom table.
Another cool thing you can do is set up the Microsoft Teams integration. Really awesome way to have enhanced collaboration. Your Dynamics data can be in Teams channels. You can have Teams chat in Dynamics 365. I love it. I think it's awesome. It eliminates the need to go back and forth between different apps, which is kind of where we're seeing Microsoft going with all of the Power Apps and Dynamics 365 improvements. So real-time collaboration. And what's really cool is you don't even have to have a Dynamics 365 license to be able to chat. So I like that part too. There are so many things rolling out in the Teams collaboration space, again, in all of Power Apps. It's cool.
Now, you also should know, we talked about knowing what data type to create for your fields or columns, but you also should understand there's multiple types of forms, right? And these also all appear in different parts of the application. So you should understand the difference, right? My main form is our main form for interacting with data that you're going to see in your model-driven app. Your quick create is anytime you click on that plus button. This will be a more basic form, kind of streamlined just for creation of the new records. We have quick view that allows you to view data from a related record, maybe some account information you want to view from my contact, or we have a card form, which is very small.
Tip 24 is about global search and how to add and remove tables, which I also put entities. And why did I put entities? Because you switched to Classic and they're called entities there. So you're going to go to your system settings, and then on the general tab, you just scroll down until you see that setup search area, and you click the select button, which I have highlighted and circled for you here. And from here, you're going to see a lot of entities or tables that are powering global search. So you're using global search in your model-driven app. Now, the first thing you should do is remove things you don't need, like user that shows up by default. And then you probably want to add some tables that you've added. So any of your custom tables will not show up on global search by default. So add them.
Do you want to keep going?
Table search is a little bit different. So this is when you're in your model-driven app and you navigate to a specific area like accounts, and that's the little search bar up there. That's searching just that specific table or that specific entity. This is controlled by the quick find view, which lives on every table. So all you have to do to edit that is add that specific table's quick find view, make changes. What you want to do is check out that refine by, or refine it by using the filter by on the bottom right-hand corner. And then those are the fields that will power the search. So any field, any column that you have listed in that filter by, I'm out of time.
I shouldn't have let you do that one because you love Power Automate, but
I do.
Power Automate is awesome, right? We can automate any of our manual tasks with connectors, and there are so many connectors what does this say? 937.
I updated it today.
Updated that today. The current number of connectors for everything that you can imagine. And if you don't know what connectors to use, I think we have a link to the connector review later in these slides. And we're going to talk about a few other things that we can do in Power Automate throughout this presentation, but lots of fun things there, and really encourage you to check it out.
So the first cool thing we'll talk about are approvals. Approvals are like the gateway drug for Power Automate. If you've not played around with Flow or Power Automate yet, approvals is a really great place to start. Every organization has some sort of approval process, and this is an awesome way to automate everything. So there's 4 approval types. You could do approve, reject, everyone must approve. So if Kylie and I are both approvers and we have an approval flow running, we would need to wait till both of us approve that before it moves on to the rest of the steps. Approve or reject first to respond. This is what we have internally for our blog review. Whatever the first person to respond is, that moves it on to the next steps and 2 others. Ask me in the chat.
Yes. And so one thing that you can also do with approvals is use approval templates. I can't take credit for this idea, but I have implemented it a few times, and it's so helpful to, within Dataverse, create tables to house approval templates. Say I have an approval that needs to go to multiple people, I can create a template for that. So then when my opportunity reaches the correct approval stage, it grabs the right template, and then I could create another table to track all of the approval steps. So I'll know for this opportunity, it needs to go to these 3 people in this order, and then my flow will be reading from that table to know which approvals to send out. So really cool way to make sure I can capture all the comments from all levels.
I love that tip because it is really manual. Okay, create a variety of training materials. Another thing I love to talk about is end user training. So people learn differently. I did like a whole 1-hour training on this. So if you are interested, hit me up in the chat and we can talk about it when we go live here afterwards. But people learn differently. You can differentiate your learning content to reach more learners. So I've got a couple things here, and we're just looking at like some examples of how people learn. Visual learners, oral learners, which is speaking and hearing, reading and writing learners, and kinesthetic learners. One thing that reaches everybody is live training, but obviously that's not always an option. So when you can't do live training, do the other stuff.
Also, we encourage you to do role-based training. So not everybody needs to know everything, right? Let's think about Advanced Find. Advanced Find is great, and it's awesome for admins, like many of our people probably in the audience today. But do I really need to teach my salespeople that? Probably not, because it might be overwhelming to them, and they're going to lose interest and cause them not to be working in the system, right? But there are other things like navigation, changing views, sorting, and filtering that'll be helpful for everyone. So that's something that we should include in all our trainings, but we should make sure that our trainings are also specific for the user role so they don't get overwhelmed. And if you can, even get users from that type to train themselves, train others.
So also, it's a great idea to offer ongoing learning, right? We don't want to, I call this the big bang training approach, right? You don't want to go live with the system, train everybody, put them through this great stuff, and then just farewell, good luck, you're on your own. So make sure that you have small little nuggets where people can learn. So these can be like lunch and learns. They can be tips and tricks, newsletters, video libraries. I heard some people like launch some podcasts. You know your culture, you know your users and what's going to get through to them. I just encourage you to do these in small learning chunks, right? This shouldn't be everybody sit in a classroom for 6 hours and we're all going to talk about CRM.
Okay, now we're at our security tips. So check your team inheritance settings. So what this is when you open up your security role, it says members privilege inheritance, and there's 2 options, the direct user basic access level and team privileges, or team privileges only. The old way used to be team privileges only. So if you have security roles you created years and years ago that you haven't updated, make sure you check those, and you probably want to change them to direct user and team. This will allow you to assign that role to a team, and the person could have everything they need to access just by being on that team. Previously, they still needed roles assigned to them. So this is great when you pair it with Active Directory and security group team.
Which is your next tip. Roll right in.
Yes. So I encourage you to use Active Directory security group teams. What this means is I've created a security group in Active Directory, and I create a team in Dynamics or Dataverse that's going to be reading from that group. So anyone that gets added to that group in Active Directory automatically gets added to that team in Dynamics. So if I assign a role to that team, anyone who's just added in Active Directory is going to have that role and going to have that access. That means that I can manage all of my security through Active Directory, maybe through my help desk or whoever manages that, instead of it needing to live with a Dynamics admin.
That is a really good tip for time saving. So the next security tip is a great one. If you haven't done this yet, you will when we finish this presentation. Remove, delete for everything. So train your users to deactivate records instead of delete. Delete is not needed. As a system admin, you will have delete. You have everything. You're the only one that really needs that. So very, very strongly recommend remove, delete for everything. Ask me why I say that. Ask me why Kylie recommends this. We'd have so many stories for you. Maybe we're going to add them in the chat as we're talking about this. So bonus tip that Kylie taught me, and I've been working in Dynamics for 11 years and I didn't know this. You can click on the column or row in a security role and change all the permissions at once. Here I was sitting in that delete thing, just clicking those dang bubbles until they were blank. So thanks, Kylie, for that awesome bonus tip.
That's a great thing to remember. Great way to stay, to get things done quickly. But also make sure and check, because there's a few things you might want delete for, like views and things like you might want them to be able to delete
personal views. Yeah. This feels like a really long minute.
I'm going to go to the next one.
Yeah.
Maybe we missed it. We'll see. Okay.
I mean, I guess we could keep talking about that.
Also, remove dangerous permissions. So like delete, we want you to check and look what else is in your roles and clean them up, right? Maybe bulk delete, maybe bulk edit, right? Because they could erase data that way too, by replacing it with something else. What about export to Excel? That can also be dangerous for users if you don't want them exporting sensitive data. Maybe you don't want them to be able to save the phone numbers, things like that. And a lot of these show up in the miscellaneous privileges section. So just make sure you're checking those out and removing what they don't need. This can also be good, and also a time to review sharing, right? Generally, you don't want people sharing stuff because they don't need to.
Sharing is not caring for Kylie. She doesn't like sharing.
I hate sharing.
Editable grid. Editable grid is really cool, but it has to be set up in Classic. So you can edit 2 levels of records, which is so cool. Because that means I could have a subgrid on my account form with a subgrid of a contact list. And then my users can start to edit and make changes directly in that view without having to go somewhere else. So again, this is really cool. And there's a screenshot here of Northwind Trader's account. And on that contact tab, my users can come in here and start to update information, the full name, the email, whatever your columns are. So you're going to have to, again, configure this in Classic, like all of the controls that are entity or view.
Well, this is also related bonus tip. So I can set up that editable grid on my views, right, as we showed on the last slide, but I can also set it up for the whole view. So instead of just on a form, I guess that was the last tip, I can also set it up for the whole view, right? So again, do it in Classic, but then I could turn it on. So when I'm looking at my full list of accounts, I could make changes right there. So this is really cool time saver, especially when you have users who are maybe coming from using Excel and they don't want to have to open records to edit them. You could kind of give them some of that Excel-like functionality right there in the main view.
Bonus tip on the bonus tip, your JavaScript fields then become editable, or your read-only fields become editable, so you need JavaScript to make them read. Okay, tip 37. Add pages to enhance your app. So now we're talking about model-driven apps, right? So really simple to use model-driven apps. And we're going to be able to add a lot of different things as pages. A page can be another table. It could be a dashboard. It could be a Power BI dashboard, or it could be a Canvas app. So there's a lot of things you can do. And all you have to do is click the pages icon, and all the steps are here. So add page, then you select your page type, then you click next, add your details, and voila, you have a whole new page in your model-driven app.
And we also want you to use XRM Toolbox. If you don't know about it, go write this down, download it right now. XRM Toolbox is a collection of community-driven tools to help you work with Dynamics with Dataverse. So we're going to talk about a few of our favorites on the next few slides, but there are so many more you can see on this list here, and there are more being developed all the time. So anything that you're struggling to do, maybe like edit all of the, do your translations, edit your tooltips, change user settings. Can't remember which ones are on our next few slides, but there's lots of them, even for moving components and solutions, lots of fun stuff. I love this one, so I'm just going to keep talking about it.
I knew you would.
This tool called the Metadata Document Generator is great for getting all the details about all the columns you've created. So what you're going to do is you can come in here, select the tables that you want to get that data for, and export it, and it generates this beautiful Excel document with every single field or column, right, for that table, with their data type, with the options for that field. You can even include the place on the form. So this is great to see if you have fields that are not being used. But I love it to start your documentation or build a data dictionary, right? Someone calls you and they say, I need a data dictionary. You say it'll take me 3 days, but it actually takes you 5 minutes.
So the next one is for all of you system admins out there who are managing a large team of Dynamics 365 users. And this is the user settings utility. This allows you to manage user settings for them. So if you have a lot of calls or a lot of emails from your users saying, how do I change my options? I need a different time zone. I want to see more records on my page. I want to start somewhere else. Well, you can do all of that for them now. So all you do is load this. You connect to your instance like you do with everything in XRM Toolbox. So a couple things that I like to do, again, are the time zone setting, the number of records in a view, and then email tracking options. But there's everything there. So check it out.
Also, check out AI Builder. This is such an interesting part of the Power Platform that allows you to build artificial intelligence models through low code, right? And so a great one to try out when you're just learning is the document processing, right? So I can load a form and set up a model that can read the data from that form and drop it into Dynamics. Super easy to set up, and you don't need to know any code or anything, right? And there's lots of other models here that you don't even need to configure, right? You like sentiment analysis, extracting key phrases, you can just use them. And licensing is better now.
And we'll drop some links in the chat because Kylie's done a lot of live demos on these things. So we talked real briefly about this on our last model-driven app. But again, in the model-driven app world, it's super easy to embed a Canvas app now. So if you already have created a Canvas app or someone else in your organization has already built a Canvas app and you want that as a navigable area in your model-driven app, you're simply going to select a new page and embed your Canvas app there. It's amazing. Amazing. And that's all I have to say about that.
And we'll have a link for that one too in the chat because we just did a presentation at my chapter about it. This one's taking a long time. Oh, wait, there we go. Also, you can also embed Power BI dashboards in Dynamics, right? So there are lots of reporting tools available in Dynamics that we've talked about, your views, your charts, your dashboards, but they can only go so far. So after that, we're going to go to Power BI and we can connect that and pull all our Dynamics data into Power BI and even combine it with other data sources or have dashboards that have nothing to do with Dynamics. And then I can just add them into Dynamics so people still have that one-stop shop for viewing all of this information. Just remember that users are going to need direct access to that dashboard, not just the workspace, and then they'll be able to see it in Dynamics.
We should also update that there are new functionality around Power BI and visualization so you can visualize this view in a Power App.
Oh, yes.
Okay, controls. So you can add different UI controls that will improve your look and feel. So there's an example here on the screen that is nice people, yes or no. So we've changed that from a yes/no field to be a toggle switch. There are also like star controls. There's a couple, and there are many more. I know we're going to have a tip about this later, so I'm not going to steal that tip's thunder. But you can make it a little bit easier for your users, especially if they're on like a tablet or a phone. Having that toggle switch instead of like a drop-down yes/no is really handy.
Although you probably shouldn't have a nice people toggle on your form. Sounds like a good way for a lawsuit. But anyways.
It's just for funny. Hopefully someone's giggling. Anyway,
yeah.
PCF
I must
gallery.
have been grumpy when I made that slide. PCF gallery. So yes, you can use all those built-in controls, but also there are community-driven controls. So check out the PCF gallery, and you can search there to find controls that you can download solutions for and use them in your Canvas or model-driven apps. Also, you can create your own, right? You could create custom controls just for use within your app, or that you could even upload to the PCF gallery so that your app will be there too.
Okay, with great power comes great responsibility. Hello, Level Up. If you haven't heard of Level Up yet, it's a Chrome extension or an Edge extension that you can download into your browser, and it gives you amazing power. But again, repeat with me, with great power comes great responsibility. You can wreak a lot of havoc with this, but you can also do a lot of really cool things. Look at all of the stuff here. So the reason I keep repeating about be responsible is God mode. God mode is a little scary, but also awesome. I like that you can view logical names. So if you're working on the data team, if you're trying to find out what field you need to add to a specific report or dashboard, add the logic. Oh man.
Yeah.
So many
and
cool
impersonate
things.
is so awesome for testing.
I was going to do that
we only have a few tips left about resources and fun stuff. So there are lots of great community resources. Heidi, why don't you take 10 seconds to talk about Connector Review?
Connector Review is a hopefully great community resource where me and everyone else at Reenhanced have tagged every Power Automate connector with use cases. And this is because I couldn't find anywhere else. Microsoft documentation is great if you have a vendor in mind. Connector Review is a wonderful resource if you have a use case in mind and you want to find something that fits that use case instead of the other way around. So hopefully you like it. It's all free.
And there are so many resources on Microsoft Learn. So we linked several here that are our favorite kind of courses to go through on Learn. One that I want to talk about is Success by Design. So this walks through kind of Microsoft's suggested methodology for delivering projects. But why I think it's important is that it doesn't tell you necessarily what to do, but there are like pages of questions to ask in your workshops. So especially the security one is awesome because there are so many questions to really get down to the nitty gritty of what people need to do and what they don't want people to see or they don't want people to do, and find a solution.
So then we have the release notes, table of contents, and the release planner, which sorry if that was the next tip, but check out the release plans. There are so many things that are rolling out that are new, and we need to update the slide because we just got the 2023 release wave 1 details, but these links will still work. We'll put them all in the chat so you have access to it. But if you're Dynamics 365, which you probably are because we're in the customer engagement track, also remember to check out the Power Platform release notes because there's a lot of stuff in there, specifically Power Apps, Power Automate, and Dataverse that are going to affect Dynamics 365. So check out what's coming, check out what's on the roadmap. Final tip. Follow us.
Follow us. Be our friends. So we've included all of our links here. So make sure you connect with us. And like we said, we're live in the chat right now if you want to send questions, and we're going to answer questions live in just a few minutes. Anything else that you have to say, Heidi?
Well, Kylie, I think we might have like a minute or two left. Do we have any bonus tips?
2.5 minutes for bonus tips. Okay, let's see. We'll see how many we can get through.
See our bonus tips.
Oh, we talked about this
solutions.
one. Use solutions. We just included it. Okay, this one's a good one for you.
Okay, so streamline your business processes. It's not a good one for you. There are 2 available tools that will help you to streamline your business processes. Number 1 is business process flows, which are awesome if your organization has a clearly defined process. This can help almost like guide users what the next step is. Also, Power Automate. I mean, that's a way to automate and streamline all kinds of things. Find the manual stuff that people are doing today, like Kylie said earlier, and then simplify it. So use business process flows and Power Automate to help all of that.
Yes. And also keep your forms clean. We talked about this with business rules, hiding fields that we don't need, but you can also do that with the form designer. Just remove fields that nobody's using, right? Use your metadata document generator that we talked about. Find fields that are on the form but have no data. There's another tool for that. and then remove them, take them off your form. You can also use tabs to move things that are less used out to another tab. And then, of course, use business rules or JavaScript to show and hide when you don't need it.
Set up your own duplicate detection rules. You get a lot out of the box, and a lot of times they're not good enough. They might suffice, but there's probably something better. You can create your own duplicate detection rules that fit your specific business needs. And now you can move those over with solutions to other environments. You used to have to build them in 2 environments separately, but now it's really simple to do.
Excellent. We talked about this one a little bit too. Remove sharing, right? Do you need it? You've designed your security model in such a way, you've designed it for a reason, right? So if you're letting people share, you're letting them go around your security model. So I would say if they don't need it, take it away, and then you can discuss if they need it. But make sure that you keep it on there for views, right? You still want them to be able to share their personal views and their dashboards and that kind of stuff.
Another tip is to add an admin area to your app navigation. So there's probably areas in your model-driven app that only admins care about. So that's really simple. You're just going to go to the navigation area of Power Apps and then add a new area, call it admin, and then just add the groups and sections as you need to.
And I think we are right at time. So we have several more tips that we can answer in the chat, or we can answer in our live conversation piece. So please, reach out to us, talk to us in the chat, and let us know your questions. Thank you again to DynamicsCon for including us, and thank you to all of you for voting for us. We'll talk to you in just a minute.